Hello and welcome to Business Finishing School. Let your business brain finish what your entrepreneurial heart started. Our catalyzing statement is a successful entrepreneur inside of every business. Enjoy this module. Welcome to Module 8, Simplicity on the Far Side of Complexity. And this is going to be a fun, maybe comparatively speaking, more light module. And I have to tell you, you've got the greatest guy in the world. He's known as the simplicity guy over here, okay? He's all about simplicity. As a matter of fact, it's almost neurotically so, as he's going to tell you hopefully a little bit about his life and how he lived it and how simplicity is his primary value. And not to make fun of him, because I have to tell you, this is something that he drilled into my brain like I can't even tell you, and I started to apply it, where last year, my whole life, especially working with my wife and I, it was about we want to add simplicity to all aspects of our life, but it's far side simplicity. So let's give him the quote first, if I can.
Okay. You have the honors.
Okay, thank you. So it's an Oliver Wendell Holmes quote, and basically what he said was this: I wouldn't give a fig for simplicity on this side of complexity, but I would give my life for simplicity on the other side of complexity. And basically it's mastery. It's a definition of mastery where you get through you start in a place, you have a vision, a goal, you get through a complexity arc to a point where everything comes together in a simple way. And working with Rick, what I have found is that everything is driven through how can we make that simpler? How can we make this simpler? Move away from things that are complex and chaotic and create urgency, and look for opportunities to create simplicity in your business and, quite frankly, simplicity in your life in general.
Yeah, and I don't think people put enough emphasis on this in their life. But let me hammer it home a little bit more for you. If you were able to follow around somebody like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or Richard Branson, you would probably notice that they have really simple lives. They're crystal clear on what they want to get done. And it's interesting that, you know, somebody like Richard Branson lives on a small island very far from most civilization. How is he able to do that? Doesn't he have a lot more responsibility? Well, if you think back to when JFK said those famous words, he died soon after he said those words. And yet, his words still came to life and his dream came true. And a lot of that has to do with being simple, being crystal clear with why you were put on this planet, have that clarity manifest in your business, and don't do a lot of other things. We are, as entrepreneurs, in my opinion, many times addicted to yes. We want to get the latest gadget, and we want to get the latest this and the latest that, and we want to say yes to everything. And as you'll learn in a future module, it's so much more important what you say no to and being really clear about that. But the fact of the matter is this: when you lead a simple life, you're able to have more power, more influence, and more impact on the world. I've said it over and over, but it's worth repeating now. What you're going to get now and in years to come is simplicity, probability, and leverage. So let me give you some examples of what I've done in my life personally, and some of this was luck, quite honestly. When I first got out of college and I got my first job, I just never understood why people commute long distances. I just don't get it. One of the negatives of commuting long distances is if you're commuting a long time, if you look at the people in their cars next to you, there's so much anger on people's faces sometimes that it actually starts you off on the wrong foot. So for me, the first time I got a job, I actually signed the lease right next to my job, so that I got the job and then I went and found a place to live that was right nearby. And I have done that throughout my adult life. That was 26 years ago. And for the last 26 years, I have always lived right near where I work. I've never commuted before. Now, that's just one thing. Now, you may say, well, that's crazy. I like living in the country and working in the city or whatever. But that's an example of applying thought to your values. So one aspect of being simple as it relates to this module is to look at your list of values and see how are you living those values? How are you putting them into action? And one thing I do in my company and in my personal life is I look at my values, and once a month I take a value and I see how am I using this in my life. Because why have a list of values if you're not manifesting them in your life? I always found it interesting when I'm up in front of an audience and I'm talking to them about values, and I'll ask somebody to stand up and I'll say, you know, is your life working? And sometimes they'll say no, and I'll say, well, what are you committed to? And everybody gives some general answer like this: I'm committed to my religion, I'm committed to my career, and I'm committed to my family. And I said, if I were to follow you around for a week, what % of your time is focused on your religion, your career, or your family? And oftentimes, you see a lot of golf, you see a lot of TV, you see a lot of going out with friends, you see a lot of things that are the exact opposite of that. And I would say that the reason that's the case is because they're not living on purpose. So, the first thing you have to consider in this module is, am I living a life that is consistent with my values and my purpose? I'm focused more on the personal side, but you also want to look at your business side. Is our business honoring its values? Because when you look at somebody like the Stephen Jobs or the Bill Gates of the world, those people are on purpose. They know exactly why they're getting up in the morning, and everything else is a distraction. If they're not on purpose, then it's a distraction. That's why they're able to lead very simple lives, even though there's probably a lot of complexity underneath. But the funniest thing about this thing is, take a guy, and this is not name dropping, but take a guy like Warren Buffett who has 90,000 employees. How is it possible that he could read for 9 hours a day? You might say, that's crazy. You look at the other small company entrepreneur with 3 employees, and they're crazy busy all the time. And what are they doing? They're getting the latest gadget, and they're downloading the latest iPhone app, and they're crazy busy, and they're not focused on their purpose and their values. So the most important thing that I'd like you to get out of this module is to reassert your values and make sure that your life and your business life are manifestations of those values, and that you're living them and you're putting rituals and processes in place to make sure that you're living your values.
One of the things you might be thinking right now is, well, I'm sure that Warren Buffett or Richard Branson, some of the people that you mentioned, there was a time maybe when they were a little bit more complex, a little bit more crazed in what they had to do. I mean, I read Branson's biography, his autobiography, and certainly he talked about some of his launching of Virgin, launching of the business, some crazy things that went on, how hectic it was, and et cetera. So remember, this is far side simplicity. You're working through a complexity arc, but you don't get to simplicity by accident. You have to earn your way there. One example I can give you, maybe to take this a little bit further, is the understanding or the implication of it. Think about this. Einstein's famous equation for relativity, E equals mc squared. Energy is equal to mass, m, times c squared, the speed of light, which is 186,000 miles per second, a big number, right? Simple equation. That's really a very simple equation. You look at it, it's simple to understand. Just a few letters in there, number, an equal sign, what have you. Not a big deal. But the complexity arc that he had to go through to get to that equation, a simple equation that literally transformed our understanding and context for the universe and the laws of the universe. It changed our entire orientation toward reality. And you say, well, it's just such a simple little equation, but that's a far side simplicity. That was the thing that Oliver Wendell Holmes said he'd give his life for. Near side simplicity is, well, I've got a simple little job, doesn't produce much, doesn't do much. It's just simple for me to go and come back, and it's a meager type of uncomplicated existence, but there's nothing passionate or purposeful or exciting about that existence. That's that near side complexity. You want to go to far side simplicity, not near side simplicity. So, figure out now, how might this apply to you? Look at your business. There's no doubt, I can tell you that before I met Rick and before he really started drilling this particular principle into my head, I could tell you that I would have said, oh, we've simplified as much as we could, but we just have a very complicated business, and it runs in a very complicated way, because look at all these moving parts, and look at all the customers we have to serve, and look at all the different things that we do, and of course it's a little crazy and chaotic, but aren't all businesses? especially entrepreneurial organizations that are small businesses. Aren't they just all this way? And I was literally making excuses with him, like, oh no, this is just the way we're doing a good job. We're as efficient as possible. We're as simple as possible. And then as he kept pounding on me and get me to look at things, I started to see it. Oh my goodness. Again, I was not living simplicity as a principle. I was hearing it as an idea. I was hearing it as a concept. I was hearing it from Rick's words as a core value, but I didn't see it as a principle. But once I understood that there's this principle of simplicity, and we would talk about far side simplicity that we want to work toward, which would work not only in my business, but in my relationships, in my parenting, etc. Suddenly, as I started to live it as a principle, things started changing, stress started reducing, funds started increasing, efficiency started expanding. And regardless of any business that you might be in, I can tell you that this principle, when you finally, quote unquote, get it, is life-altering and career-altering.
Leonardo da Vinci said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Think about Steve Jobs' pursuit of creating Apple computers and devices in the most simple and sophisticated way. That's far-side simplicity. There's so much complexity under the hood, so to speak, with Apple products. However, they're showing it to the world in an extremely simple way. That is far-side simplicity. Apple is a manifestation of that. Here's what I'd like you to do when you're thinking about this module and applying it to your life. Look at all aspects of your life. Look at where you live. Look at how you live. Look at the number of cars you have. If you're a car addict, that's one thing, like Jay Leno has a bunch of cars. But look at ways that you could simplify your life. Do you realize that the complexity that you're adding to your life and your business is moving you away from success, not toward it? There are so many roadblocks that people unintentionally put in the way of their highway to success. And they do it subconsciously because they're not even really sure how to do it. We talked in an earlier module about the rituals. There are so many rituals that you could put in place in your life with your key relationships and in your business to simplify everything. So there's not a lot of crazy back and forth to try to get in touch with people. I can't tell you the number of companies that I've walked into that didn't and don't have regular business meetings. It's ironic that I know this guy really well who didn't have regular business meetings. How do you have a company without regular rhythmic meetings? And now, of course, he does. But that is something that's so simple to implement with massive and leverageable results. Regular meetings at regular times about things that are important so the communication all happens at once versus email here, voicemail here, I didn't get to talk to them about that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So look at your personal life. As an example, once a year I go through my entire home and I throw out anything that we don't need. I like to live in a house that's got wide open spaces. I don't want to see clutter everywhere. When you have clutter around, whether it's in your office or in your home, that's cluttering up your mind. So you already know that, but what I'm trying to do is give you ideas for some objectives, whether they're personal objectives or business objectives. Cleaning out clutter, organizing your life so that it runs more smoothly, so that you can get to the far side. The most important thing I want you to realize as you're listening to this is, I want you to imagine your life being on the far side of simplicity. You're over the hump. You don't want a simple life on this side. You want a simple life on this side. And a simple life on this side means you're accomplishing massive things. And all of the other stuff is occurring on the other side. You think about the names that I've mentioned and how massive their businesses are. A lot is happening around these people, but they lead simple lives. So what I'd like you to do as you're looking at your life right now, and the implementation guy will have more about this, is every time you're about to make a decision, whatever the decision is, you have to ask yourself, is this going to complicate my life? Because I've been focused on this value my whole life, whenever somebody gives me a business idea, my brain automatically goes to, is this going to be simple to execute? And we have certain rules that we look at. how complicated is it to deliver your service? If it's really complicated to deliver your service, fix it. There was an article that I read about a process in an insurance company, and they hired a consultant to look at this process for when somebody has a car accident. And what they found was, in order for someone's claim to be paid at this particular insurance company, there was 273 steps that paperwork had to go through before a claim check was paid. The consultant worked for the company for 2 weeks, got paid a lot of money, but they reduced it down to 3 steps. From 200 and something down to 3. And there are so many opportunities like that in your life. I have to tell you about an interesting personal example of mine that exemplifies what happens in most businesses. One time about 12 or 13 years ago, we had a CFO that we needed to terminate from the company. And this CFO worked a lot. This CFO worked about 70 hours a week. We paid him a lot of money, but he didn't seem to really be on top of all the numbers in the way that we wanted him to be. Well, we came to a termination agreement, and I decided to sit in his chair and figure out what he did so that when the new CFO comes on board, we can just give them the process manual. What I found was this particular person was packed. They had daily checklists and weekly checklists and monthly checklists of all the things they had to do. I am not exaggerating. Not one thing that this CFO was doing in the 70 hours a week that he was working, not one thing was relevant to the bottom line. And so we literally didn't have to hire a new CFO. Our controller handled everything from that point forward. There are so many inefficiencies when there's bureaucracy in any business. And the objective here is to get you to leverage your business. I keep focusing on that word leverage. And there's ways to do that by making everything simple. Why do you want a complicated life? Why do you want a complicated business? A lot of times it's because people don't take a step back. You've heard me say before, short-term pain for long-term gain. Yes, it stinks to clean out the garage and clean out your house and sell all the stuff in that storage place that you're renting. I find it really incredible that in the United States of America, they build more facilities for storing crap than they do facilities for homeless people. Isn't that kind of crazy as a society? We're building facilities to put crap into. That's because people have cluttered lives. I actually had a storage facility at one point in my life. I didn't even know why I needed it. 3 years of paying the bill, I went there one day and I realized I didn't need anything in it. And the gentleman who owned the facility said, "I'll take it." And I said, "Fine, take it." And I've never had a storage facility since. But this proliferation of storage facilities is a sign that our lives are too complex. When we lead a complex life, that means we're not on purpose. And that's the whole reason why Patrick and I decided to have this as a module in business finishing school. Why do I want a simpler life? So you could have more success. That's why.
Yeah, I want to go back and further one example you gave that I also have a direct experience with. We had a CFO also that we eventually terminated because we'd have our monthly management meetings. We had some rhythms of meetings, not all that we should. But we had some. Every month we had a management meeting. We went through finances. And basically, what happened was we would walk in and she would always have a stack of financials. Literally the reports, I'm not exaggerating, were like this thick. So we'd get in there and we'd waste 75 to 80% of the meeting just going through all the stuff and call. Once I had gotten rid of her and we found a replacement for her, the next CFO came in and literally I'd walk into the meeting and it was 2 sheets. All the complexity down here, he turned into far side simplicity, saying, here's the key performance indicators and the key data that you need to know from this thick of a report. But we're walking into the meeting today and literally that meeting went from an 8-hour meeting, sometimes 9-hour meeting, to maybe about a 2-hour meeting. So that was far side simplicity. Now, I wasn't a CFO. I don't have a finance background. I understand it, and obviously I have to review the finances of the business. But the interesting thing was, I got this pile of reports, and that person's orientation was, well, the more paper I give you in the stack, it shows the better I'm doing my job, because look at all this complexity. This is the average ordinary human being couldn't possibly figure out how to go and pull all these reports out, put all this data together. stack it up like this. So look at my value and worth, and I will tell you that the value and worth of the person that can give me 2 sheets of paper that tells me everything I need to know to run my business is worth 1,000 times more than the complexity that was piled on me by the former CFO that we had to eventually ask to leave. So this is an example. Where else does this show up in your life? Where else are you making things much more complicated than they have to be in your business and your life? And when you really start to think about this, all of a sudden things start to melt and you start to see like a whole new pattern of existence and you start to move toward that. And I'll also tell you one more thing. Rick has been living the quote-unquote simple life for so long that he's maybe doesn't remember way back when he really started to inculcate this into his experience. But I could tell you that once you start getting that first piece of simplicity, like wow, the 2 pages, you start wanting it everywhere. It becomes like a bug that bites you and you go after it. But right now I have a sense that as you're listening to this, you're sort of getting it. I have the sense that you're saying, well, this is interesting and I think it might apply to me to some way. But it really takes some time of reflection with this one for most people. Maybe you're getting it like this right now. It takes some time and reflection for most people to start simmering on it, and all of a sudden it starts to ease its way into your life, into your pores, and the next thing you know, you start adding simplicity to your life. I mean, I think we were in our accountability group for almost a year. You were talking about this and banging and hammering on this for almost a year, and finally the other members of the group were like, wow, simplicity, yeah. And we got so passionate about simplicity, but it took a while before we really started to activate on it. So I know this is seeming simple on the surface, but there's depth to this, and there's fun to it also. And I really, really recommend that you recruit your spouse, you recruit your employees, in the varying dimensions of your life, recruit people who are attached there into this idea and this theme, and start to see what kind of magic unfolds.
There was a famous quote, and I can't remember who said it, but he was talking about making a speech. He said, do you want me to make a long speech or a short speech? Because if I make a long speech, I don't have to prepare. If I make a short speech, it's going to take me a week to prepare. And that's the whole magic of simplicity. You have to invest some time into making your life simple. However, once you get there, the result is much more power. It's almost like pinching the hose. Did you ever think about a garden hose? Imagine a garden hose and you're just leaving it open and the water pops out. But when you put your thumb on there and shrink the surface space of the end of that hose, all of a sudden you have far more force. That water is flying out of there. It's the same thing here. You have to take some time to simplify your life down so you could have more power and have more success. I hope that analogy made sense to you. One of the things that I've seen in my life over and over and over repeated is that a close friend or an acquaintance will become successful, and now they want to live the good life. And I've seen this scene so many times I can almost feel when it's about to happen, but I'll just tell you what happened recently. I was at a friend's house. He moved into this big new house that was far bigger than he and his wife needed. And here I am at his house, and this is a person who owns a business, and it was the middle of the week. We were talking about a business deal. And all of a sudden the insurance guy comes over because something happened to one of his cars in the driveway, because he had to have 6 cars. Then he had a call because he needed some carpet replaced in his boat. Then he had a call because something happened in his timeshare. People were coming in and out of his life and disturbing him. Of course, he had to have the maid who had to fix something. I mean, there's all this chaos, all this chaos. And I said to him, is this what success is all about? Is chaos all around you? And I'm actually not telling you the whole story. The pool guy came. Then they had the landscaper have to come. And in a 2-hour meeting, he got disturbed over and over and over. And you know what? He felt proud. I could almost see like his chest coming out. So I don't have to tell you that I decided not to do business with this person. But I see this all the time. The more success we have, the more chaos and complexity we like to add to our lives. So I think the true elegance, as Leonardo da Vinci said, the true elegance is if you can take the opposite approach and have your life be a manifestation of simplicity. That is where you're going to derive the most power.
And furthering that example, in the personal side, it's been more than a couple times that my wife and I might be out with another couple for dinner, and it's another entrepreneur, somebody who's got a business, et cetera. 3, 4, 5 times during the course of the dinner, phone rings. He's got to make a call. Oh, he got a text. He's got to respond to text. We're supposed to be sitting there, relaxing, enjoying a meal. Constant interruption. And I think it's a little bit of what Rick just said too. It's like the more successful I am, the more I show that, wow, even at night, even at dinner, I'm so important. I got to constantly be doing this type of work. When it's really just the opposite is true. The ultra successful people have found simplicity on the far side of complexity. They're not in that whole fray, which literally it's like you get frazzled. You burn out your spouse, your kids. You're trying to have an experience with your kids, your employees. They're trying to get a hold of you. They're trying to sit with you. They need a little time with you. They want to talk to you, and they really can't because, oh, I'm too busy. I'm the top notch. I'm the big dog here. I got all this stuff to do. I don't have time for you. As compared to being able to be relaxed, focused, and let the people who are going to be responsible for achieving success in your business have your attention because you can give it to them.
Yeah, one thing that was very ironic and interesting, Pat, was in all of the meetings that I had with the billionaires, all of the meetings I had, some were vacations, some were weekend trips, some were a week long. Not one time was I disturbed by a ringing cell phone. Not one time did the billionaire say, excuse me, this is an important call. Not once. It never happened. And I believe part of the reason that these people became successful is because they know how to stay fully present when they're with another human being. I recently had a good friend of mine tell me, because he had to get the latest application on his cell phone, he said, I like having my cell phone because when I'm walking around my house, going from one child's room to the next, I could check emails and stuff like that. How does that make your kids feel when you're home and you're checking emails on your BlackBerry instead of being fully present to them? Think about that. Another interesting story is my wife and I were at church recently, and I saw this father with 3 beautiful young girls, and they were probably 7, 5, and 3. They were all dressed nice. And this guy, the entire church ceremony for 45 minutes was on his BlackBerry. And every once in a while he would look down to tell us girls, shh, shh, be quiet. But it was okay for him to be on his BlackBerry through the entire church service. What message is he sending to not only his children, but his peers who could see him doing this during a church ceremony? And I believe that some of that is associated with an insecurity. And some of that insecurity is associated with us not living a life that's on purpose. Once you're on purpose, why wouldn't you want the most simplicity that you could possibly attain? And with that, let's now go to the applications for Module 8.
Now let's talk about the applications for this particular module. There are a variety of applications. I'm sure, hopefully, you're already considering having analyzed your business. But let me tell you an example from a dental experience that I had that was mind-blowing to me. I went with a friend on a dental appointment. Why? Because he knew about my field, my background, and he said, I want you to check out this dental practice. It's one of the busiest dental practices in the state. So I'm expecting to walk in and see people milling around, running around, chaos and everything else. But what do I see? I see 8 dental chairs head toward the center in a circle this way. I see a staff person and a dentist who's going from chair to chair to chair. It was an open dental operatory, I guess you would call it. And literally, with efficiency, with no urgency whatsoever, with complete fluidity, I saw how this practice ran, and I could tell you I marveled at it. It was like a work of art that I was looking at right there. And I can guarantee you that the patient volume, which was huge, would have choked most practices. Stressed staff would have been running around. People would have been queued up at the desk either trying to check in or check out, etc. But they had stations set up for what to do. You checked in here, you went to a holding place there, you went to the next open chair as the dentist was with fluid motion working around from this person to this person to this person, then would get to the new one, start the process there, and then keep moving along. Nobody felt rushed. High volumes of patients were being processed. The staff was smiling all the time. No sense of urgency whatsoever. It was like a ballet. very, very complex as far as the amount of business they're processing, but simplicity in the action of conducting that business. How can you do that in your business is the question. What do you do, and how can you start looking at ways to inculcate that type of simplicity into your business?
Another thing that people do is they spend a lot of time trying to explain what they do as a business. And their salespeople spend a lot of time. They haven't taken the time. Remember, short-term pain, long-term gain. Take the time to have a sales process that makes sense. As an example, here's what I mean. I learned a long time ago that when somebody asks you what you do for a living, if you want to tell them, if it's somebody that you want to engage, you could be on a plane and you could think somebody is successful and you want to interact with them. When they say what you do for a living, I believe the best answer is to start with, I believe that. Start it that way. So let's say you're in insurance. I believe that there's a lot of widows in the world that are destitute because they're underinsured. You started the response with, I believe, and then talked about your business. Isn't that a lot more compelling than when someone says, what do you do for a living? I sell insurance. Because the next thing they're going to do is put their earplugs in and start reading a book. But if you answer this way, someone says, what do you do for a living? And you start with, I believe, and then you fill in the blank. So if you're a doctor, I have a friend who says this. Someone says, what do you do for a living? And he says, I believe that obesity will choke our nation. And they're like, really? What do you do? Well, what I do is I am solving the obesity problem in the world. As an example, my point is, it's simple, and it's elegant, and it gets people to want to know more. So if you put into your culture, instead of a typical elevator speech, you put an I believe elevator speech. That will solicit a lot more. That's just one example of a way to simplify this aspect of your business.
I can give you another great example from a technological standpoint. We do a lot of teleseminars. And if you have been around and you're in this business at all where you do webinars, teleseminars, etc. So it kind of started where, hey, we've got Bridgeline so we can have some kind of conference calls. Then suddenly all this great technology came out where you can post your PowerPoint, you can do audio, you can throw some video in there, and you can make the presentation much more dynamic. And it was referred to as a webinar. So of course we want to be on the leading edge, especially since one of my companies is a technology company. So we want to start doing webinars. What do we find? Well, you know, you got to upload the PowerPoint, put everything on. Everybody wants to join. They've got to download the software. They got to load, and when they download the software, they've got to launch the software. And then, of course, there's got to be a technological process on their end that's got to work right across a whole bunch of different platforms out there. So what started to happen? Every time we launched a webinar, sure enough, our front desk was ringing. People are calling saying, hey, I'm having problems. I can't see the slides. I got this problem. I got that problem. What should I do? Next thing you know, and the thing is going on live, so they need attention right now. So now it's like a domino that fell, and it goes all the way back into the office where all these people are trying to service these people and get them back online. And trying to do something to inspire people, to add value to their life, to either enhance our customers' experience or add new customers to the business. Instead, because it was so complex what we're trying to do, we were actually pissing off some of our clients and pissing off people who were looking to become clients of our business because we promoted so hard this thing that we were going to get for them, this webinar, and they couldn't get on it. And then my friend Alex gave me a great suggestion. He said, go back to a simple thing. He said, just go back. He goes, everybody's got a phone. They know how to make it work. It works flawlessly. I know the webinar seems sexier, but it's 10 times more complex. And he said before I even told him, and I'm going to bet that at least 25% of the people don't even get to log on to the webinar because they're having some kind of technical problem. And it overloaded my whole business. And I said, but yeah, but sometimes they need some notes, some visuals. He said, very simple. Take the PowerPoint, whatever it is, put it into what he called an activation guide, lock it into a PDF, and everybody that registers for the teleseminar, just send them the activation guide. Everybody can open up a document, print it, have it ready, and be on the phone and follow along. So that's another just great example how you might see complexity as sexy. Complexity is being leading edge. Complexity is putting you above everybody else because you're using the latest technology. But the reality is, and in my case was, that it's hurting the business, it's upsetting some people, it's stressing the heck out of my staff, as compared to saying, here's a nice simple way to do it. Everybody can simply get on a phone call. It's simple to send out an email. It just changes everything. So don't be seduced by complex technology as being the latest, greatest, coolest thing and that will try to impress people. Think in terms of looking through the lens of simplicity, saying, how can I deliver the value that I want to deliver to my clients that are out there without stressing my staff and without disappointing them?
And one thing we hope that you're understanding here is, with the business model for this product that you're watching, we tried to incorporate simplicity into the whole process. So I hope that you have some appreciation for that. And if you want to show us or tell us some ways that we can make this even more simple, you can let us know. Now, when Patrick used that example of the dentist's office, one thing you have to realize too, which really makes Farside Simplicity work, is when Patrick was talking about the dental office, one thing that you have to realize is that this dentist, because he had such a simple, high volume practice, he obviously had clients that fit his values. He probably knew when a client saw the 8 or 10 chairs next to each other, some clients were probably, ooh, this isn't really my type of dental office. Great. That is the greatest thing. Let them opt out. There's a famous story about Southwest Airlines, which is now the most profitable airline in the world, that little airline down south. Southwest Airlines CEO Herb Kelleher once got a letter from an irate customer. And the letter, which he's now made famous, basically said, I use Southwest Airlines, and when your flight attendant was making the public service announcement and teaching us how to use seatbelts and how to exit the plane, she cracked a lot of jokes and she was laughing. I think this is an outrage. I think that your airline needs to stop this immediately. And Herb Kelleher took the letter and wrote, see ya, and emailed it back, meaning she clearly doesn't fit our culture. If you don't like fun when you're in the plane, then go fly somewhere else. The point is, he didn't form a complex system, call the attorney, we have to respond, uh-oh, we need to change our whole systems and culture, no more laughing. He realized how his company needs to work, what the values of the company are, and the clients that don't fit, see ya. And that's how simplicity on the far side works. You start manifesting the type of clients that make your business run better. Here's one application that you need to do, absolutely. Look at all your clients, and you'll find Pareto's principle. You've heard this before, 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your clients, or somewhere like that. Some companies I've seen have 90% of their revenue coming from 10% of the clients. But guess what? It works the other way too. 80% of your problems are coming from 20% of your clients. Get rid of those clients. Get rid of the ones that are causing your problems. 80% of the problems in your personal life are caused from a few number of people. Fix those relationships or exit them from your life. You want to take Pareto's principle and apply it to all aspects of your life. Now, you're probably going to listen to this and go, yeah, okay, maybe I'll do that. What you do is you have a parking lot for objectives now. So in your parking lot, add this objective. Take Pareto's principle and apply it to our clients. Take Pareto's principle and apply it to problems. Take Pareto's principle and apply it to our business processes. 80% of our problems are coming from 20% of our business processes. And get rid of those processes or tweak them. So you want to take Pareto's principle and apply it to each aspect of your life. You could even look at your health issues. 80% of your health issues are coming from 20% of things that you may be doing to your in your life, like smoking or drinking excessively or overeating, whatever. And you really start to look at your life from a different perspective when you put it through the lens of Pareto's principle. Another thing you want to think about, again, all of these successful people that had Farside Simplicity, what I noticed when I was in their home or in their vacation home or in their car or in their office was total cleanliness and organization. If you're not organized, get organized. Again, short-term pain. Get organized. Get clean. Clean office. Clean home. They function better. That's Farside Simplicity. I can't walk you through the steps on how you're going to clean up your life, but I did put some things in the implementation guide to help you. You have to have a clean environment. A clean environment will allow you to be more purposeful and allow you to have more leverage. When we talk about the three-legged stool of simplicity, probability, and leverage, simplicity is the driver. Once you get simple, then your probability of success goes up, and then your leverage becomes immense.
So I think you got the idea by now. Download the implementation guide and start adding simplicity into your life and into your business, and you're going to have an entirely new and better experience. Thank you for watching this module of Business Finishing School. Let your business brain finish what your entrepreneurial heart started.